And so I focus a lot on public policy, focus a lot on political symbolism, and I think that when you look at those two in tandem, you see how the Republican Party has used race to negatively impact African American interest, particularly at the ballot box. Now, I don't want to absolve the Democrats here because Democrats have used it as well, but I think the key point here is the Republicans have perfected it in a way that goes way beyond anything that's been done by any other group of voters. So I've done all these interviews, I've read all these papers, I've read all these books, written all these pages, and at the end of it all, I've come to three conclusions that I want to share with you. The first is this historical relationship between the Republican Party and the black community, while historically accurate and significant and important and notable and critical to African American political, social, and economic development during the Reconstruction era, is in fact overstated. Because if you look at the history of the party from the party's founding until the end of Reconstruction, you're talking about less than 20 years in which the party put into practice not just words but deeds in terms of public policy. So from the end of Reconstruction in 1877 through the end of the 19th century and into the 20th century and beyond, you see this change, the sea change. And so whenever you hear the Republican Party as the party of Lincoln, you have to say, okay, well, that party of Lincoln era was actually pretty short, you know, when taken in total. These same activists, Republican activists who argue that we are the party of Lincoln, in my estimation, are not they're either unfamiliar with this history or know it and realize that most people don't. So if they just tell a story often enough, people will believe it. But even President Lincoln, the symbol of the party of Lincoln, was less than excited about having these African Americans, these black folks around him. He met with a group of black leaders once and effectively said, we are hurt by your presence, you are damaged by our presence, let's put some money together and get you all back to Africa. Now, there was a $100,000 appropriation that was put in place to facilitate this movement. It never happened to the extent that it was envisioned, but again, this is the party of Lincoln, and I think that part needs to be laid out. I think that the group of radical Republicans really pushed the party in a strong direction, but they were not able to maintain that, and as a result, you see the Lily White movement in other areas, other issues that I talked about earlier. The second is many African American Republican activists, in my opinion, do not understand the link between ideology and voter support. I asked every activist with whom I spoke a number of questions, including this one, and that is, do you think the party needs to moderate its positions in order to attract more African American voters? Every one of them said no. Well, that tells me then that you don't understand black voters and you don't understand the link between ideology and voter behavior. Because African American support for the Republican Party was strongest when the party was seen as liberal to moderate on social issues. As the party moved further to the right ideologically, African Americans, who have been where they always are, center left, the Republican Party moves right, they in effect move away from African Americans, and African Americans then move away from the Republican Party. So if you don't understand that, then there's no way you can really understand how to approach African American voters. These activists with whom I spoke seem to say that if we can just get past this liberal media, and if we can just get past Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, who have some super control of black minds, who convince them to be, you know, slavish, if you will, in their support of the Democrats. If we can just get past that, then we'll be all right. So it's not, they don't really see it as being about the party and its positions. They see it more so about liberal democratic black activists. And I think that the last conclusion that I would draw is the Republicans do not fully understand how high the mountain is that they face with regard to black voters. There is more than a century of hostility between these two entities. And so if the party is going to reach its goals, it's really going to have to be serious about it and make some changes in its public policy. So as I see it, a party's future is formed in part by its past, and the Republicans' past of shunning, pushing away, using racial symbolism and negative public policy has created a wall between African Americans and the party that will take as long to undo as it took to build in the first place. And so that's really where we are with regard to Republicans and the black vote. If the party is going to be serious about winning black support, then it has to be serious about speaking out on the issues that African Americans are most interested in. And I believe that there are some Republicans who understand that. There are some who are willing to do it, but they identify themselves more as moderate Republicans, and moderate Republicans are not in control of the party right now. And so that's where we are, and with that, I'll take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about black neoconservatives in the political landscape?
Can you repeat the question?
The question is if I could talk a little bit about black neoconservatives. Well, black neoconservatives in some respects are similar to white neoconservatives and conservatives generally, in that they view the problems, social problems, primarily as the result of social dysfunction, and ignore some of the structural impediments to achievement and equality that face many people around the country. I'm disappointed by that, because I think any objective look at any issue that we have in our country, be it incarceration rates, educational achievement, so on and so forth, there's always more to the story than just a simple, if they just got up and got a job, things would be better. It's more to it than that. You got a job, it's going to pay you $5.50 an hour, you know, how are you going to raise your family on that? You know? So I think that what we need to deal with, I think, from a black neoconservative perspective, and everyone else for that matter, is to take a serious objective look at all the contributing factors that create some of the issues that we have, some of these persistent, ongoing issues that we have, and then move from there. You know, I mean, one of the big issues for me is sort of public safety. But when you look at the research from William Julius Wilson, for example, he points out very clearly in my mind that, you know, when work disappears from neighborhoods and there are no places for people to work, then you literally breed social dysfunction, the kind of dysfunction that leads to many of the problems that plague poor communities all over the country, not just black communities.